Recording in progress. If we can begin with the roll call.
Yes, Chair. Vice Chair Harrison,
Here.
Secretary Brubaker,
Here.
Commissioners Loy, Agarwal, and He are absent. Commissioner Timmons
Here.
and Commissioner Golovitz.
Here.
Great, and welcome to our two new commissioners, Gay Timmons and Alexander Golovitz. This is their first meeting, so if they look like they're a little hesitant, you have to give them a break. All right, let's move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the approval of minutes. However, we're going to move that to the next meeting because there are not enough of the commissioners that attended the meeting for which we have the minutes are not here, so it really can't be approved by this particular group. Next is consent calendar. I don't believe we have any consent calendar items. Okay, so we'll move on to the public forum under the Brown Act. Is there anybody wishing to address the Planning Commission on an item that is not on the agenda? This is their opportunity to do that. Is there anyone here in the audience that wishes to address us on an item that is not on the agenda? I don't see any hands going up. So is there anybody on the remotely?
At this time, I'd like to ask anybody joining us virtually to use the raise hand feature if you'd like to address the commission on an item that is not on the agenda. I'll just go ahead and give you a couple more seconds there. Chair, it does not look like we have anybody joining us virtually interested in providing public forum comments.
Excuse me? Nobody?
No speakers online.
Oh, this is a fast one. Okay, we'll go on to new items then. First is item number 1 is PLL 24-012 Mariscos Los Reyes Restaurant Alcohol Sale. It's a public hearing to consider a conditional use permit amendment to expand the public restaurant alcohol sales from on-site beer and wine to adding distilled spirits. Okay, so why don't we begin with the staff report?
Good evening, Chair Harrison, Hector Rojas, Planning Manager with the Richmond Planning Division. It's my pleasure to introduce to you our Planning Technician 1, Ray Alberts. She is with planning staff tonight and will be giving the presentation on this item.
So hello everyone, I'm Ray Alberts. I'm a planning technician, as Hector said. And I've been assigned to the Mariscos Los Reyes Restaurant Alcohol Sales Project. The applicant is Jose Reyes and he's here. The project is primarily to expand the existing ABC license from a Type 41 to a Type 47 to include the sale of distilled spirits as well as beer and wine. And there are also a couple of other additions that the applicant wants to make to the previously approved administrative use permit for this restaurant. So this is the site. It's on 23rd Street. It's between Burbeck and Garvin. And it falls within the form-based code area in the zone T5MS. This is a Main Street zone, and the intention of this area is to provide a vibrant, walkable, urban Main Street commercial area, providing locally and regionally serving commercial uses, as well as a variety of urban housing choices. And under the general plan, it falls under the medium intensity mixed use zone. And the applicant has a building that is in construction right now. It's about 70% done, and I'll show you some pictures in a moment. This is a site plan of the building. So there's parking in the back for the residences, but because this falls in the form-based code area, parking is not required for the restaurant. And the restaurant is on the floor of this building. It's about 2,200 square feet, and then there's 3 dwelling units above the restaurant that have already been approved. So this is just context of what the area looks like right now. So the outside of the building, it's 3 stories. It's got some beautiful tile. And this is the picture on the left is what the inside of the restaurant looks like at the moment. And you can see more photos in Exhibit B attached to your staff reports. So, as I said, the main purpose of this application is to add a Type 47 ABC license. And the existing is allowing beer and wine on the premises as an eating establishment. And the Type 47 only changes the addition of distilled spirits. It requires that the establishment is maintained as an eating establishment and that drinks are primarily served with meals and not on their own. There are currently only 1 out of 5 alcohol licenses in the area that are allowed being used, so there's not an overconcentration of alcohol licenses in this census tract. As part of this application, I reached out to the police department, and they generally support it with a few sort of comments, which we've talked about, and mitigated their concerns, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. But the applicant also reached out to the neighborhood council on this, and they're in support of the expansion to distilled spirits. And I reached out to the Merchants Association as well as the applicant, and they are also in strong support of this project. And you can see those letters attached in your packets as well. So the recommendation for the Type 47 ABC license aspect of this is to approve it, keep distilled spirits behind the bar only, and have alcohol inside only. The next component is live entertainment. So the applicant wants to have some live entertainment during the nights, maybe during the day as well. This might include sort of amplified live music as well as mariachi and stuff like that. We wanted to leave it open for some flexibility there. So what we landed on together was 3 nights a week, Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays as options for the live entertainment. And with the applicant is also hoping to add daytime entertainment on Sundays, which seems like it fits with the area. On this item, we also got input from the Merchants Association, and they have no problems with live music. The neighborhood council doesn't have problems with it either. The police department mentioned concern over noise complaints and security when live music is going on. So the applicant decided to agree to having a security guard present on the live entertainment nights. And in terms of noise, there will only be live entertainment inside of the building itself. There's a lot of soundproofing in the building between the ground floor and the residences. And the applicant plans to sort of, if there's complaints, address those and lower the music and work with the neighbors as appropriate. So you'll see in the conditions, the recommendation here is to, like I said, allow 3 nights a week, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, make sure that the noise is not audible beyond the premises or outside of the walls, and have a security guard present. Another matter that the applicant wanted to add in addition to these two is outdoor seating. So you can see on this diagram here, there's sort of a narrow area for outdoor seating. It's about 6 feet in depth. And that doesn't leave enough room to meet zoning code and have a pedestrian walkway to access all these tables. It also brings up ADA compliance concerns. And so for now, our hope is to approve this, leave it open for approval in the future if the applicant can present us a plan that does meet the zoning requirements, including ADA access and the pedestrian walkway requirement. But that does mean that there won't be able to be a fence or a barricade between the outdoor seating and the sidewalk because, as it stands, there's not enough room for both tables and a pedestrian walkway. And because there can't be a fence or barricade between the seating and the sidewalk, it means that alcohol cannot be served outside per the zoning code. So if outdoor seating was to be approved later, there would not be alcohol served outside. And yeah, that's that on the outdoor seating. And then the hours of operation for this application. Previously, the restaurant was approved 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. daily. The applicant is hoping to stretch that to 11 p.m. Jose may want to talk more about his plans there, but he probably is not going to be open until 11 p.m. every day, at least to start, but wants to leave it as a possibility for live entertainment nights or special events, and so that he doesn't have to come back and amend the permit further in the future. And the police department commented on this and said their only concern would be if people have too much to drink and that staying open that late could promote that behavior, but ultimately supports the hours extension. And then additional conditions are fairly standard, so meeting light, noise, and performance standards per the zoning code, using recyclable foodware, having security cameras, maintaining the restaurant and the outdoor area in good repair, and making sure there's signage about alcohol sales to minors, loitering, public drinking, and possession of open containers, all per sort of the general regulation in the zoning code. And then I've added here, this is a modified condition text for the entertainment component because originally we agreed on 3 nights per week, but after the writing of the staff report, the applicant asked to have entertainment on Sundays during the day. So we're hoping to get this approved with that modification. So I just have the text there. But that's it for me.
Thank you. Before we open the public hearing, let me see if any of the commissioners have a question for staff before we move on to the public hearing. I just have one. You mentioned a few of these items that are in the conditions of approval or operation are kind of a little flexible right now. They're going to do something in the future, but maybe not going to do it now. Is any of that going to have to come back to the Planning Commission, or are we approving all of that stuff tonight?
Yeah, so the way that the conditions are written are such that the applicant will not have to come back to Planning Commission, and that it leaves room for us to approve it as long as it meets the zoning requirements.
Okay, thank you. Okay, at this time, let me open the public hearing. Oh, excellent.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for that. The presentation was clear. Thank you. I did have a question about the hours. So is it a condition, are the hours conditioned? Is there a condition in the approval for, and what does the condition say about hours?
Yeah.
About alcohol and about entertainment?
Yeah, so the hours of operation are condition number 3, and it just says the hours of operation shall be 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. daily. And which is sort of a maximum. That doesn't mean that they have to be open for those hours. And then the alcohol is condition number 1. And then you can also see the signs regarding alcohol in condition number 13. And sort of statements of fact and findings about the alcohol permit meeting the zoning code prior to the list of conditions in the resolution.
So there isn't a specific condition about hours for alcohol. So is that right? The alcohol could be sold 8 a.m. to 11 p.m.
Correct.
And there's not a specific condition about the hours for entertainment?
No, not about hours, just about the days.
Okay. And if we approve this, we're allowing the restaurant to be open till 11 p.m. and that is in a condition, so they cannot extend their hours beyond 11 p.m. without coming back to the Planning Commission?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions before we open the public hearing? All right, then let me open the public hearing. I think we would begin with presentation by the applicant if they wish to. Anybody from the, you don't have to, but if you want to, you're welcome to.
So I have not much to say, but
Yeah, you want to come up to, I guess, that microphone there.
Good night. My name is Jose Reyes. Try to open use permit for 761 23rd in Richmond. And I'm trying to apply this use permit to open a family restaurant, if you guys allow it. And
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Are you the owner of the restaurant or the building?
my sister is the owner of the building, and
Okay.
I'm going to be owner of the
All
restaurant.
right, thank you.
Great. All right, thank you.
Oh.
Okay, is there anyone here who wishes to speak in opposition to the project? It looks like you're off the hook. You can go ahead and sit down. Thank you very much, sir. All right. Are there, I guess at this point, I can go ahead and, is there anyone out in the, out on internet land that wants to speak?
I would just note, we haven't received any speaker cards from members of the public, both in opposition or for the application. So I'd like to see if anybody present, if they just were unclear on the procedure. There is a speaker card here to your left. You could fill that out and hand it to me if you'd like to have 3 minutes to speak on this item. At this time, I will turn over to our virtual attendees. If you're interested in speaking on this item, please use the raise hand feature and we will recognize you to go ahead and speak. And I'll offer a few seconds there. And Chair, it doesn't look like we have any speakers on the virtual side.
Okay, thank you. Then I'm going ahead and close the public hearing and turn it over to the Planning Commission to ask further questions or discussion, and then eventually a motion.
Hey, I'll go. I do have some questions or comments, or maybe a question to the commission. I guess we do have it within our rights to put an additional condition about hours for alcohol serving. So if we chose, we could put a condition of, say, 10 p.m. as being the endpoint for the alcohol and still allow the restaurant to be open till 11 p.m. So I'm just throwing that out there to see what other people think. I think we've done something like that before in other cases. So that's one thing. Love to hear others about that. Let's see. I think everything is in good order. I guess I'll just mention a couple things, a couple comments. One is that I think the building is really great. So I just went by it, and it's a very beautiful building. It's going to be a real asset to the street. So I think, you know, the architecture is really nice. The fact that there's going to be a restaurant there and there's housing above it, it's really cool. I'm glad to see it. And I'm very supportive of that. I guess I would, let's just, I wanted to mention one other thing. It's too bad there's not really enough space to get a fence, a low fence at the sidewalk, so you could have people inside and out drink alcohol. But maybe there's a way to solve that in the future. I know that in some cities, the use of parklets is pretty common, where you take some space out in the, you take away a parking space and build a, structure where you can sit, but that wouldn't allow you to use alcohol there because you'd be crossing the sidewalk. So typically, at least that's my understanding. But still, in case you need to expand, maybe there's some opportunity for that. And I don't know what the city's position is on parklets right now.
To my knowledge, I don't think we have any. There may be one in the Point Richmond area. At the
There is one at the Up and Under.
Yeah, and I would probably need to take a look at what specific process that went through, but certainly as a division, we would support the use of automobile space for outdoor seating. But yeah, we'd have to take a look at what the specific provisions are for that, if there are any.
Yeah, that's great. So it's something to think about in the future.
Any other questions or comments?
I have a question about the building itself. Is that going to be an apartment building, or are those going to be condominiums? Does anybody know?
Are they for rent or for sale?
Yeah.
Yep.
So right now it's going to be apartment building. So we not only apply for the condominiums, because my sister has in the future he's not planning to sell it. She's planning to keep it. So that's why she's going to maintain it like apartment.
Thank you. The question was also about the limited alcohol hours. How does that get enforced? Like if the business is open until 11, but they have to stop selling alcohol at 10?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, primarily because we do not have staff that is out that late. Potentially, there could be a call for service to the police department, and then that gets relayed to us the next day. Also, typically, we'll get a comment through one of our neighbors or neighborhood council saying, hey, this is happening on a consistent basis. Is that in accordance with the conditions of approval, yes or no? And then we'll follow up with an enforcement action, potentially notice of violation. If that's not addressed, then potentially moving towards a citation and fine. And then potentially, if it gets really worse, then we revoke the CUP. Come back to you with that action.
So I guess the staff would try to enforce that so that they don't get into a mess like that, I guess.
All right, okay, thank you.
I was curious, I tend to agree with Bruce that we ought to look at limits on the hours of serving the alcohol. In addition to, I think stopping at 10 p.m. in the evening is a good idea, and I'm wondering if 11 noon might be a good time to stop rather than early in the morning. That might be my suggestion, that in addition to a cutoff at 10, we have a start up at 12 noon. Any thoughts, anybody?
Just a question for planning manager. Are there do you know of other conditions like that in the city?
No, not personally, although I do agree it's within your purview to do so. It might be useful to ask the applicant what types of alcohol he might be interested in selling during the morning. Typically for breakfast, of course, like on a brunch, you might have, a mimosa, for example.
Okay.
So that might, limit that type of service. It is certainly within your purview. I'm not familiar with a particular condition. I am familiar with conditions limiting the stopping time of alcohol service. So in this case, potentially 10 or 9, and then having the location open until 11.
I'll withdraw my suggestion.
Yeah,
on
it's
that.
a good point about Bloody Marys,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, didn't think of that.
Well, should we consider then different days, like Friday, Saturday, Sundays, early hours, okay, or?
That
not-
may get
not-
too complicated
okay,
for the
okay.
applicant, I think.
All right.
Might get too complicated for us.
People have different weekends.
I wonder if we can ask the applicant what you think of stopping the alcohol at 10 p.m. I know my concern is just that that's when people can start getting rowdy. And as a benefit to the neighborhood, it might be good to just have an hour of kind of like the bar is closed, but what do you think?
Yeah, so I can stop at night, but what about if we have no complaints? But we're not going to close at 11, so we just getting the use permit because I don't want to come back to the
I see.
to the use permit again because it's another $3,000.
So you're not likely to be open that late anyways,
No.
at least at the start.
Yeah, just to start, yes. We just want to try to see what happens.
I think I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I move that we approve the conditional use permit with one condition, which is to limit the sale of alcohol to 10 p.m. in the evening. And I'll just keep it simple like that.
Okay, and so that's adopting resolution 2403 when you say the conditional use permit?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Is it as changed? Like, how is it phrased? Like the motion to approve, but with the change?
With the additional
Okay.
motion, with the additional condition of approval, right? So assume that gets approved, then when staff issues the final resolution, they will have added that condition to it.
Okay.
At least that's, I think, how it works. All right. Any further discussion? Do we need a roll call vote or just a show of hands?
I'd like to do a roll call vote.
Okay.
Great. Chair Harrison,
Yes?
Secretary Brubaker,
Yes?
and Commissioner Timmons,
Yes.
Commissioner Golovitz.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, and so the motion has been approved, and we have the ability for someone to appeal this, and I can't find the language on that. Here it is. So that this decision by the Planning Commission may be appealed to the City Council by written notice thereof and payment of an appeal fee to the City Clerk's office and Planning Division by 5 p.m. on March 18th, 2024. All right, I think we can move on to the next item then, unless I forgot something. Okay, next is item 2. Great initial presentation by the staff person. They did a good job. Okay, number 2 is PLN 24-061, Bulk Materials Processing Center Conditional Use Permit. It's a public hearing to complete the 5-year compliance review and consider modifications of the conditional use permit for the Bulk Materials Processing Center at 1 Par Boulevard. And so I guess we're ready for a staff report.
Yes, good evening, Vice Chair Harrison, Commissioners. My name is Lena Velasco. I'm the Director of Community Development. With me this evening is Rose Radford from R3, who is the city's consultant who is supporting this project as well as will be doing the presentation. But just as the Commission just approved a conditional use permit for some of these larger conditional use permits that may have operational requirements, construction-related conditions. At times, the Planning Commission will impose a review of the conditional use permit and a report back to the Commission. So that's what we're doing this evening. As part of the Planning Commission previously approved use permit, a 5-year compliance review was requested, and so this is the 3rd compliance review that we'll be presenting to the Commission. And so with that, I will hand it over to Rose Radford.
All right, good evening. Wonderful to be here. Thanks for having me. Rose Radford with R3 Consulting. R3 was asked by the city to facilitate the review of the applicant's self-reported compliance with the conditions. And we also do have the applicant here to answer any questions that you might have. So the site itself began operations in 2006. It's actually located on a closed landfill site, so I do have some photos, aerial photos, so you can get a sense of what that really looks like. The conditional use permit itself was approved in 2004, and as Lena mentioned, compliance with it is reviewed on a 5-year cycle, and again, this is the 3rd such review. Your conditional use permit is one of many permits that are issued for this facility. The county also has an identical permit because the site is located partially on county land. There's a state permit. The state visits the site every single month to review its operations and confirm compliance with that permit. The environmental impact report also it regulates many aspects of the site's operation, and the site is also regulated by the Air District and the Water Board and many other entities. So this is a diagram of the site itself. I'm going to skip through this quickly because the next one is a little bit better. So you can see the outline of the site, that black outline, and that's actually the bay. On the other side, so to the north and to the west of the site is the bay. That's a closed landfill. It almost looks like a mountain, so you can't see that here. But on top of the closed landfill, the operator, which is Republic Services, has developed a materials recovery facility to better utilize that space. So you can see, I'm going to walk you through the operations of the site, starting on the very right side. You see a foot of Par Boulevard there. That's where vehicles enter the site. They go north through the scale house, where they're weighed and the charges assessed. And then they loop around the top. You can see that the road that loops around there, and most of the vehicles end up on that circle that sort of, it's labeled Golden Bear Transfer Station. That's where all of the garbage goes. So this, the I don't know what happened there. The primary use of the site is to transfer garbage from essentially the streets of Richmond and other surrounding communities to a open landfill. There's a construction demolition debris sorting, so people can deliver, whether that's contractors or individual people, can bring their construction demolition debris there, and source separated wood, big piles of concrete, very cool little operation. And then moving to the center, you can see the biggest footprint on the site is the composting facility itself. This is a recently improved composting facility, so it's state of the art at this point in time, and that's where your yard trimmings that are out on the street every week get delivered and get remanufactured basically into compost. So this is a significant piece of infrastructure related to solid waste services in your entire region. And that's it's a very important asset, I think, is what I'm trying to say. So I just walked you through all of that. There's also the public access trail. Actually, let me go back. This is a part of the Bay Trail and open to the public, so people can drive to the parking lot there and actually walk all the way around the edge of the closed landfill. It's beautiful, very nice walk. And then I think I covered the rest of these pieces, so I will go to the next slide here. Republic provided their compliance report in September 2023, a few months ago. R3, in coordination with your city staff, reviewed their self-reported compliance through issuing additional data requests. We went there out on site twice with various departments, the Richmond Fire Department and the water. I can't quite recall the full title, but the people responsible for water. Water resource recovery, thank you. And we also did, through direct phone calls as well as some emails, coordinate with all of the other regulatory agencies. And I want to note that R3 had done the 5-year review previous to this, and so we were reconnecting with the entities that we had coordinated with before. And so that's the local enforcement agency, which happens to be located in the county but is enforcing the state's permit, Bay Area Air Quality Management District, the San Francisco Bay Regional Water Quality Control Board, thank you. The county staff that oversee the county's LUP, which I mentioned before, Trails for Richmond Action Committee, who is in support of this and provided a public comment, and Recycle More, which is the local joint powers authority that the city is a member of. So this time around, we focused on a few key areas that had caught our attention in our prior review. There are there are extensive conditions related to the site's operation, including some activities that are outside of the site itself. So the permittee is required to maintain signage about illegal dumping, as well as actually run trucks in the vicinity of the site to clean up illegal dumping. So we took a look at that. They also pay a fee for the city and county's operations related to illegal dumping in that area. Last time around, we had looked at in great detail at concerns around fire and fire danger at that site. So we double checked. The fire protection plan had been adjusted 5 years ago. And so we went and checked to make sure that they were still enacting the requirements that had been issued at that time by Richmond Fire. Odor concerns had been something that were somewhat prevalent, especially at the beginning of the review period. And so you'll see this review is for 2017 to 2022. And at the beginning of that period, odor issues were still occurring. And what I want to make this clear that those issues have really essentially evaporated. The operator has improved the operations at the composting facility significantly, such that the odor incidences are essentially zero at this point in time, as well as any fire-related concerns that we have. Yes, thank you. I'm going to skip weed control but focus on litter fencing. Especially on the composting operation, you may not know this, but many people put things that they are not supposed to put into their yard trimmings carts, and that includes a lot of plastics. So for any members of the public listening, please don't put plastic into your yard trimmings cart, but that is something that Republic needs to deal with when they receive that material, and if it's not dealt with properly, that might go out into the bay. So Republic installed very large, these huge fences. They almost look like amphitheater fences to help control it's also quite windy because it's right on the bay. So that is looking fantastic and is a change from the last time we were there. The marketing of compost material off the site, we want to make sure that the compost is being sent out where it's meant to go, which is the farmlands. The Air District is still looking for a emission test that meets their requirements, and so that's something that is pending between the applicant and the district itself. So we're aware of that. We talked with the Air District about that, and there's a plan in place for that to occur. I mentioned the offsite litter cleanup, the illegal dumping activities. There's also a requirement for all vehicles to be weighed that is in near conditions. However, we are conditionally allowing the operator to continue to accept vehicles and not weigh them, but instead assess a volumetric charge. And so that's a piece of this review as well. And I'm happy to report that the permittee is doing a really good job. As I mentioned before, we had issues in the past, and we're very pleased with their progress in resolving all of those. I'm not sure how much detail you would like to hear about this. I could talk about it a lot, but I'll skip through and talk about a few of the things that haven't come up yet. At the time of our prior review, there were some collapsing slopes and some issues with road maintenance related to stormwater. I visited the site a few months ago, right after a really significant rain incident. And if that had happened 5 or 6 years ago, if I was out there and they had received that much rain, those roads would have huge divots through them. But they've done an excellent job of improving the runoff control measures that they have. All of the runoff goes to a lined pond and then is properly treated. None of it goes into the bay. Everything is very well controlled, and they do an excellent job, and that's highly improved. The roads are also nice and wide, so the fire trucks can access them if they need to, and they actually need wide roads anyway because their own equipment is really big. Tonnage reporting, so the city is tracking the operators, essentially the diversion of the materials, which is what the site is really intended to do, is to make sure that as much material as possible is not transferred out to that landfill, right? And it is the bulk material processing center. It's processing material for remarketing and recovery. Illegal dumping I talked about. The maintenance of the Bay Trail itself is an obligation of Republic under this conditional use permit, and some concerns had been raised in the past about the level of maintenance on the weeds around the Bay Trail and invasive species. Those concerns have essentially been resolved. The operator is doing a good job now of regular mowing. It is a lot of, I can't quite recall, maybe Peter can remind me, I think it's 2 miles around, 3.5 miles around the entire site. So you would imagine that it's difficult to get a lawnmower out there to mow that entire area, but they're doing a good job of it. And I also want to note that some changes have been imposed by the water board related to runoff and capacity for receiving that runoff. And they reported that the operator has been very proactive and responsive and has met those requirements on their own. So to conclude, we're not looking to change any of the conditions. This is just to receive the permittee's self-report of compliance with staff, which staff agrees with, and file that. So that's what we recommend. I'm happy to take questions.
Okay, thank you for the report. Before we open the public hearing, do any of the commissioners have questions for staff? Nope. Okay, well then I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. I don't know if I think we just heard the applicant presentation, although I'm not entirely sure. If you would like to say anything, you can, you don't have to. And I don't know if there's anybody here in opposition. Don't see anybody, or is there anybody online?
Vice Chair, I would also note that we don't have any speaker cards for anybody in favor or opposition. And then I will turn to the public attending online tonight. If any of you would like to register comment on this item, please use the raise hand feature, and we could go ahead and recognize you to speak. Offer a few seconds there. And it doesn't look like we have anybody interested in speaking from the public online.
Okay, then I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and open it to the commission for any comments or further questions. I'd just say that it sounds like we're getting a very good operation out there, which is something to be proud of, so I'm glad to hear that. I had one question. Does food waste also go into that compost area? Okay. Any questions?
Should I verbally respond to that? Yes, thank you so much for the question. It's very important that people sort out their food waste from their garbage and place that into their yard trimmings container so that that can be made into compost rather than decomposing in the landfill and contributing to climate change.
Except meat, right? Except like proteins and fats? Oops. Sorry, except proteins and fats?
You can actually put anything that decomposes that is food related, so that even includes bones,
Okay.
just not animal waste.
Okay.
I just have a comment. Great report, thank you. Seems positive. I have been following the track report, so I understand that there was a lot of weeds, and there seems to be a better control of the weeds now on the landfill trail. My comment is just a personal one. I would personally like to see some data about how much, tonnage comes in, how much tonnage goes out, how much compost is able to be processed on site, and whether that's changing year by year. That would just be interesting, and I think it would be interesting to the community as well. I'm not sure if I'm going to be here in 5 years when you come back and make your next report. But why don't you add that to the list then when you do come back? That's my comment.
Is the she indicated that you guys sell the compost? And so are you're licensed through the FFLDR, the CDFA program that licenses composting for sale? Blank look here.
I'm not sure I understand your question totally, but we do sell a compost to the general public.
Okay.
We do sell.
CDFA requires, not that I'm here on behalf of CDFA, I am not, but I was a consultant for them for a number of years in the food, feed, and
They visit
division.
us regularly, and
Yeah,
we
okay,
have-
so then
we
you
have
are.
weights and measures come down.
The
and-
inspector is here.
Yes.
All right, yeah, so you are licensed through
And
them.
on the first Wednesday of every month, we give out free compost.
That's the main reason I ask it. I am a first Wednesday person. So,
Wait, could you repeat that? That's interesting. There's free compost given when?
first
At
Wednesday?
101 Pittsburgh Avenue, the first Wednesday of every month, you're allowed up to 2 cubic yards. Bring a shovel, bucket, or a pickup truck. We won't load it for you, but I make sure when we bring the compost over from the site that it's some of the best stuff we've got. That's actually where I get my compost from
Yeah.
my yard.
It's really good. It's a
It's
really
very
good
good compost.
compost. Yeah, having worked with compost for 30 years, I'm impressed.
If there's nothing else, then I guess we can go ahead and entertain a motion. Anybody want to move approval of the, what's it called, the resolution? Yeah, Resolution 2402.
I made the last one. I'm waiting for someone else to do this.
Step up.
What do I say?
I move to approve resolution number 2402.
I move to approve Resolution 24-102? No, this says 061.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm
where
on the
you get
wrong
your
one.
number.
So Resolution
The agenda seems to be a
24-061.
different
I'm
number.
looking at the one from 5 years ago, I think.
Okay. I need a second.
I second.
Okay, we've had a
And
motion.
I'll go ahead and do a roll call vote. Vice Chair Harrison,
Yes?
Secretary Brubaker,
Yes.
and Commissioner Timmons,
Yes?
Commissioner Golovets.
I'll abstain.
And motion still carries.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for the report, and thanks for the great job you guys are doing.
I'm looking at the.
Yeah, I was looking. Item number 3, which is a study session, so we'll be hearing a presentation and providing any feedback. So this item number 3 is PLN 23-306, Trans Moncang Terminal Expansion Project. So it's a study session to provide and receive comments on the proposed expansion of the existing Trans Moncang Terminal, which would include construction of a new truck canopy, above-ground tank, and associated rail infrastructure at 488 Wright Avenue. And with that, I guess I'll turn it over to staff. Or the applicant, or whoever.
Vice Chair Harrison, once again, Hector Rojas, Planning Manager. It's my pleasure to introduce you to you tonight. Our contract planners, Shauna Bricky-Reed and Cecilia Harros-Leslie. As you may already know, the volume of applications in the city of Richmond continues to be constant. However, our bench is not as deep as it used to be, so we are contracting with MIG to process a lot of our more complicated applications. So they've been assigned this application and are here to provide a presentation for the study session item tonight. So I'll turn it over to Shauna and Cecilia.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Cecilia Jaroslavsky, Contract Planner, presenting this item before you, and I think I'm having difficulty pulling up the PowerPoint. Thank you, and apologies for the technical difficulties. The project before you is located at 488 Wright Avenue for the Trans Mountain Terminal Expansion, PLN 23-3. Staff is seeking commission review and comments on the project and requests feedback to staff and the applicant. Currently, the site is developed with the Richmond terminal providing storage and transfer services for petroleum products and renewable feedstocks. The terminal receives petroleum and renewable products from another party's pipeline, barge, ship, rail, and truck, and stores and distributes them to customers. The terminal does not ship out petroleum products via pipeline and does not handle crude oil. The project areas are located within the northern portion of the site, and there will be a little bit more detail later on in the presentation. The subject site is comprised of 2 parcels, totaling 14.5 acres, somewhat rectangularly shaped, bounded by Wright Avenue to the north and the Santa Fe and Harbor channels to the south. The site contains 450 feet of frontage along Wright Avenue and is approximately 800 feet deep. I believe that the staff report showed the first parcel, but it also has another parcel that's generally underwater. The site is zoned water-related industrial and within the port land use in the general plan, and also within the Marina Bay neighborhood. Surrounding uses include the Eagle Rock Aggregates, Orca Sand and Gravel Business to the east, and the Richmond Pacific Railroad Corporation to the west. This slide demonstrates photographs from Wright Avenue and a photograph on the site itself. Okay, now what happened?
We're having a little technical difficulty. Bear with us.
Apologies, Commissioner. I think we're back online. So this is the photographs of the site from Wright Avenue and on site. The project includes the removal of a 5,000-gallon below-grade tank to be replaced with a new one above-ground tank of the same size, the demolition of the existing 2-bay truck canopies, and the new construction of 1 4-bay canopy. The existing rail lines would be extended. It's not reading it.
Go to your next slide.
Okay. The new truck canopy would be located 24 feet from the front property line along Wright Avenue and 73 feet to the west side property line. The above-ground tank would be set back 215 feet from the front property line and 19 feet from the east side property line, complying with zoning development standards. This is bad. Okay. The total roof area of the new truck canopy, including eave, would be 7,200 square feet, with a maximum height of 23 feet. The structure would be partially enclosed along the top by 7 feet at the east-west elevations and 13 feet at the north-south elevations. The bottom portion of the structure would have a minimum open area 8 feet tall. The project is currently under review by staff and an initial study is required. The project requires the review and approval of a design review permit for additions greater than 1,000 square feet in this district and a CUP to allow chemical, mineral, and explosives storage. Due to the proximity to the shoreline, the project also requires review and approval by the San Francisco Bay Conservation and Development Commission. The project is consistent with the Port General Plan land use designation, intended to include working waterfront uses, including privately owned terminals like Transmontane's, and would result in the further consolidation of industrial uses around rail and port facilities. The project complies with the development requirements of the Water-Related Industrial District and will be constructed in compliance with the current California Building Code. The applicant has reached out to the Marina Bay Neighborhood Council, and to date, staff has not received any comments from the public. So far, staff has received comments from the Contra Costa County Fire, East Bay Mud, and PG&E. Staff is requesting feedback to staff and the applicant. That concludes my presentation. Thank you very much for your patience. I'm available for questions. The applicant is in attendance here, and I also believe the applicant's representative is available virtually.
All right, thank you. Let's just open it up to questions or comments from any of the planning commissioners.
The property that's on, I understand they're replacing the tank, and the 5,000-gallon tank.
It's a replacement in kind. Instead of below grade, it'll be above ground. So it'll be the same size and not hold any more than 5,000 gallons.
Okay, but okay, I understand that part. The question is that land, is that fill, what is that land? Is that a dock? What is it?
That's a great question. I believe I would defer to the applicant on that.
Okay, how do we get that information from them?
The applicant's here in attendance.
Oh, okay.
If you could just come up to the mic and introduce yourself and go from there.
Thank you for having us today. My name is Michael Brandis with the applicant with Transmontane.
Hi, I'm Katie Chamberlain with Anchor QEA. We're working with Transmontane.
To answer your question, the area where that below ground existing stormwater tank is not on fill. Part of the land is fill near our dock, which is not in that area, but it was part of an old shipyard back around World War II, and that area is fill. But the area of the truck rack, existing truck rack canopies, is not.
But I was asking about the tank, not the canopy.
Yeah, the tank is actually just used for part of, it's the loading rack for trucks. It's in containment. So all those trucks come in and then there's containment for that. And part of that is for stormwater. And that's what that is. It's a collection tank for when it rains and everything in there. And it's so that it's in a closed loop system in our site, so that any stormwater that comes into any contact with any type of truck that comes in goes to that. And then, so what we're proposing as part of this is with a new loading rack canopy would be, part of that would be to same size, but we typically like to what we call daylight assets. So we inherited this site and things that are underground like piping or in this case a tank. It's in good working order, but we prefer to bring these above ground so we can inspect and maintain them a lot easier. It's just to us a better process.
Okay, I got that. I'm trying to wrap my brain around water coming down, hitting trucks, dealing with spillage that's on the asphalt, whatever. And historically, the containment tank has been underground, which would make sense because water runs downhill. So now you're saying you're going to move it up. I'm having problems with the physics. Can you explain to me how the containment coming up is going to work?
Yes, to get into, so with approval, with the detailed engineering design, typically what would happen in that instance, so the tank would be moved above ground inside our facility where our other actual product tanks are. But what would happen in that case is underneath the new containment would be a very small sump with a pump. So when anything goes down there, it gets triggered, it pumps it through
Into
the
the
existing lines to that tank.
Okay.
Other questions?
Yeah, for the truck canopy, is that just to kind of protect the trucks coming in and out, or something is going to be stored there?
Typically, it's used for multiple, but it's for rain, basically. So it's to protect from containment. To get into detail, if you don't have that, so with stormwater, for example, having a good canopy keeps stormwater out. If any storm, which it still can get in if rain goes sideways, it's windy, stuff like that, but any water that would come in contact with the truck rack within that containment that the canopy covers would technically be petroleum contact water, just out of, so what that does is limit if we didn't have a canopy like this during the rainy season, you would create a lot of petroleum contact water. And in that instance, from the design, a 5,000 gallon tank would not be sufficient. We'd be talking about a lot more, off-hauling a lot more, and a whole different closed loop water treatment system, things like that.
So it's basically to protect the existing operation from rain, correct?
Correct.
What's the weight capacity of the tank? 5,000 gallons, like 40,000? I can't do the math on it.
5,000 gallons, the actual weight, so that would not be built on site. Typically, those are shop built and just shipped. But roughly speaking, it would be a 8-foot diameter by 14-foot tall or wide. Really, it would be a horizontal tank. Typically, is how you see them.
I was asking the capacity of the tank. Translate the gallons to weight. Can you do that?
It's like 8 pounds a gallon or something?
Well, it's probably 7.5, it's less than 8 because petroleum's lighter than water, so it's probably like Not that, 40,000 pounds, something like that?
Well, this will be predominantly for water. I mean, you can assume
Yeah,
a water's
okay, right.
density for that,
Because
yeah.
it's contaminated water is the purpose of the tank.
Yeah, petroleum contact water, correct. But yeah, it's water's density.
Okay, yeah,
for that.
so 40,000, 44,000 pounds, something like that.
What happens to the water after? Like after it gets contained in a tank? Like what happens to it next?
Currently on site, the water gets pumped through, well, there are two, it gets pumped through first a sand interceptor, and then it goes through an oil water separator, and from the oil water separator, it goes through filtering, and then it goes to an existing tank on site that then gets sampled, sent off to East Bay Mud for certain metrics, and then from there can get shipped, well, not shipped, but sent down through East Bay Mud.
So to the bay? To the bay? Does it go to the bay after it's all treated and everything?
It can be, depending on our existing permit, but a lot of times it would be sent back to East Bay Mud.
Okay, thank you.
Bruce, do you have any questions?
No.
I don't think I do either, so, and I don't have any suggestions for, sounds like you guys know your business, so,
We should have public comment though, right?
yeah. Is there, so there's no one here in the auditorium for public comment, but is there anyone online?
At this time, I'd like to ask our members of the public joining online to use the raise hand feature on your Zoom app to indicate that you would like to share public comment with the Planning Commission. So I'll go ahead and let you do that for a couple seconds here. And we do have about 6 or 7 attendees on virtual tonight, but it does not look like anybody's interested at speaking at this time.
Okay, well then, thank you very much for your information, and staff, thank you for the staff report. We appreciate that.
Sorry, I did want to
I
ask.
knew you would have one.
This is for staff and not for the applicant, so that's why I wanted to public comment. I do have a question about the BCDC permit. I don't know if it's for you or for the consultant. What is the timing going to be on the BCDC permit? And if it follows, if the environmental review is done and come back here and we approve the project and BCDC is not yet permitted, then what is the process there?
Typically, the process is that BCDC, if a permit is required, they rely on our environmental review, so they wouldn't conclude their permit issuance until they see our environmental document. So in that respect, it's sort of an assembly line where the city reviews the project, conducts CEQA, and then BCDC, if a permit is required, if it's within that 100-foot jurisdiction of the shoreline, then BCDC would rely on our environmental document to conclude their permit. So it does not, although they may have applied concurrently, they would not issue that BCDC permit until the city's process is complete.
So it's likely to be after
That's correct.
our review.
Correct.
And then in that case, there would be some kind of a condition put on our approval that says project cannot proceed before BCDC approval and permit is
That's correct. We would not issue our building permit until we have evidence of a BCDC permit issuance.
And that's kind of a standard condition then?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I just wanted to also mention something about the environment that this project is happening in. It's on Wright Avenue. It's going to generate a little bit of additional truck traffic, as I understand, and maybe more rail traffic. So there is an intersection at Wright and Harbor Way South that is proposed to have a signal and a better rail crossing. And I'm wondering if this project is going to be required, or if every project is going to be required to pay some fair share of the improvement. Do you happen to know that?
Yeah, certainly. That's something that, this is part of the reason that we're bringing this to you earlier so that, when we come back with a formal action, we sort of have all your questions and items for concerns addressed. So we certainly are taking that under advisement. That comment was also expressed by Commissioner He through email. We would need to put together a nexus study to determine if this project is going to have an impact on that intersection and what the fair share would be based on that nexus study. But we could definitely look at having that conducted as part of the project so that you have good data on what the percentage fair share contribution should be for this project.
That makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Is it possible to approach the commission with a few extra points on the project purpose?
Absolutely.
Is it?
Sure.
Okay, sorry. We just had a few things we wanted to just add to what you so eloquently put together. So thank you very much, Cecilia and commissioners, for hearing us now. Transmontane just wanted to make a few additional points on aspects of the project need. So one key driver for the project is the desire to gain an incremental increase in the operational capacity and terminal productivity without the need to construct more product storage tanks or physically expand the overall footprint of the facility from its existing condition, essentially to gain some additional capacity by making targeted upgrades to portions of its receipt and delivery infrastructure. The second need is that Transmontane needs to upgrade its transportation infrastructure to respond to the need for the renewable fuels and feedstock storage market in California and the larger renewable fuel and residual oil market that's evolving to promote refinery production of sustainable fuels throughout the U.S. And third, Transmontane has identified the need for increased operational flexibility and efficiency of the Richmond terminal. Currently, with limited rail car storage at the terminal and the railroad operator limits on the number of rail car switches that can occur per day at the terminal, it's really difficult to accommodate unforeseen offload issues and delays, which results in operational inefficiencies such as missing scheduled switches and rail car backups within the terminal. So these are the three needs to which the project is responding, and part of Transmontane's continuing investment in facility assets is to provide multimodal supply chain storage and handling services for renewable fuels. The project increases railcar offload capacity of the terminal and consolidates the 4 truck rack bays into one structure, which meets the 3 needs that I just kind of quickly touched on. So I just wanted to make sure that you all had that understanding and were able to consider that tonight. So thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you for that. I just have a follow-up. One of the needs you mentioned is the increasing market for sustainable fuels. Could you talk a little bit more about that? What does that mean? What kind of fuels are there? And
What kind of fuels at the facility?
Yeah.
You want to do that, or do you want me to? Okay, yeah.
So currently, we store an array of renewable fuels. Currently, renewable diesel is growing in popularity in California and in the nation. Also, ethanol, which has been around a while. That's, as we all know, added to gasoline as part of the Clean Air Initiative. And then also renewable feedstocks are becoming a big thing. So recycled used cooking oils, recycled animal fats, which are actually used by a lot of the refineries now that are converting to these renewable fuels to, they basically run a chemical reaction with the feedstocks to make what we store, one of which with the renewable diesel and some other things, but those are currently what we store.
Where does renewable diesel come from? I'm curious. What is it?
It's biodiesel. Yeah, but where do they where's the refining of that done?
I was actually wondering what the product that forms it was, but that's a good question too. So 2 questions.
It can come from a wide array. So any of the used vegetable oils you can think of, they can make it from that. So from clean, from virgin oils to used, but used are, you want to recycle, but it could be also any type of animal fat. So tallow seems to be a popular option, but so soybean, coconut, all of those types of oils, they can ultimately make the renewable diesel from.
And then this follow-up was, where does it physically come from in the world to this facility?
The short answer is everywhere. I know part of this obviously is we receive it on the feedstock, so these oils on rail. Commonly, they're not railed, from San Francisco anyway, so it could be Midwest, it could be Southern California, it could be Pacific Northwest, so it just depends, Colorado. But it depends on our customers, wherever they source them. We don't really deal with that, so that is a somewhat harder question to answer.
No,
But
that's a good answer.
So the majority of your material, your products come in on the rail cars and then are shipped out in the tanker trucks? Is that the operational model?
part of it, yes. So it's ships, so it comes in on rail cars, it comes in on some trucking, that's a lot smaller, because you want the more efficient, so rail cars are much more efficient than trucking. We have some products come in by ship, which would be like the renewable diesel, but the feedstocks that end up going out of our facility come in by rail and then out by ship. So, and then the ethanol in by rail, out by truck. So.
Excellent. Yes, go ahead.
So you keep saying feedstock, so this is not biodiesel yet, it's feedstock, and then you're sending it to processors who are refining and doing whatever they need to do to make it into biodiesel.
Correct, yes. That's this specifically, but we do store both. So we do store the end product also, but that's
Right.
not, we don't receive that on the rail, which is part of this expansion.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any other questions? All right, thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're done with that item then. And on to commission business. We were going to do a nominating committee set up tonight, but I think we're going to wait till the next meeting where hopefully we'll have a full commission and in attendance so we can broaden the pool for that effort.
That's correct, thank you.
And then, so do you have any reports from commissioners or staff? You guys have
I'll
any?
offer Dick the commission first, and for myself, I would just want to report on a wonderful workshop that we had earlier this week on Wednesday for the city's kickoff of the ADU guidebook and pre-approved plans. It was pretty well attended. We leveraged our social media. We're unfortunate in that we didn't have funding to do mailers in the project area. But for the social media that we leveraged, we got a good number, about 25, 30 people from the project area came to join us and learned about what ADUs are, accessory dwelling units, how they can build them in their backyards, what the city process is. And then we also rolled out the initiative that we're currently embarking on to develop a guidebook or toolkit for residents to better understand that process. And the more important aspect of that is our 2 sets of construction drawings that we're developing through Opticos Design out of Berkeley. They're our architects, and we're coming up with 2 prototype ADU detached buildings that people will eventually be able to come to the city, pull out off the shelf at no cost. So hopefully it'll reduce the cost of building an ADU in the city, anywhere in the city, not just the project area, which is the Stige, Cortez, Iron Triangle area. So yeah, it was a very well-attended event, and a lot of people are looking to pull the trigger on building an ADU. We get about 100 of these applications throughout the year, and it's only growing in demand and popularity. So I want to thank people that were able to attend, and we'll keep everybody posted on our draft construction drawings. That's it for me for tonight.
Quick question, would that come to the planning commission for any reason?
No, actually, ADUs are allowed.
Yeah.
There's no land use action required with that. We will be doing an informational item to the design review board. However, if you have interest in sort of learning about what we're doing and want to provide some general feedback, I can also arrange for an informational study session item when the time is ripe for those comments.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, seeing nothing else, then we'll adjourn the Planning Commission meeting at this time. Thank you all very much for coming.